W.F. Howes presents an unabridged recording of Pandemic Diaries by Matt Hancock, with Isabel Oakeshott, narrated by me, Matt Hancock. Prologue. In human history, there's never been anything like the speed and intensity of the pandemic which swept the world in 2020. Governments did their best, but most struggled to respond to the remorseless virus and our fast-changing understanding of how it should be fought. The cost in lives, livelihoods, and lost health and opportunities was incalculable. I was in the hot seat. From the first warning signs in Wuhan through to the massive national response, I was at the centre of events. It was the most important thing I've done in my life, and I gave it my all. I'm proud of what we achieved, especially on the vaccine, but there is much to learn for the next public health crisis of this kind, which I'm sure will happen in my lifetime. That's why I've written this book, to tell the story of what actually happened, as I experienced it. What follows is the first and most detailed account of the pandemic from inside government. Written as a diary, sometimes hour by hour, but mostly day by day, it charts the key events and how I felt about them at the time. Of course, I didn't have time to keep a detailed diary in the midst of the maelstrom, nor would it have been right to do so. For the best part of 18 months, I spent almost every waking hour managing our response, alongside the many amazing healthcare professionals, carers, public servants, and other key workers who did so much to save lives and keep the country going. My typical day started at 6 a.m., checking overnight messages and news. Typically, I'd be responsible for over half the stories on the BBC each morning when I woke. I'd see my family for half an hour over breakfast and leave for the department at around 7:30 a.m. I generally have 12 to 15 meetings per day, mostly in my cavernous office on the 9th floor of the Department for Health on Victoria Street, overlooking Parliament and half of London, or in the Cabinet Room in number 10 Downing Street. My diary would be constantly moving. On particularly busy days, my private office, which operated a shift system to keep up with the workload, would schedule me 5-minute breaks to go to the loo. Every day, I'd respond to literally hundreds of emails and messages and dozens of phone calls. At night, I'd typically read and comment on around 20 extensive papers in my red box. All this was in addition to the press conferences, parliamentary statements, social media posts and videos, and TV and radio interviews, of which I naturally did more than any other member of the government. I always tried to get to bed by midnight because I always needed to be functioning the next day. I say none of this for sympathy and deserve none. I chose to accept the role of health secretary, and a pandemic is an occupational hazard, as war is to a soldier.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?